Let's get into audience questions for the week. First one is, hey, David, is being against immigration necessarily racist? Couldn't you simply be against immigration, but not for racist or xenophobic reasons? Yeah, I mean, listen, I prefer to deal in reality rather than in hypotheticals. Of course, it's possible that you might be someone who does not care about race or ethnicity. You're against immigration to the United States from any country for any reason whatsoever. Doesn't matter if it's a country of predominantly white or brown people, or if it's a predominantly rich or poor country. Sure, that exists. The reality is that in vast swaths of situations, the economic arguments that you often hear made against immigration really only end up applying to, or people are only thinking of, those from countries where the immigrants are more brown or black than they are white. And we see this in a number of different ways, which we'll talk about. You can for sure, I mean, listen, first of all, there are studies that show that racism and anti-immigrant sentiment are highly correlated. Now, you could be racist and against immigration for other reasons that are not related to race or ethnicity. Sure, that's quite possible. But decades of data show us that preconceived prejudicial notions about race and ethnicity tend to correlate with anti-immigrant sentiment. Now, there are many economic questions about immigration that can be made. We've analyzed many of them. Like, for example, immigrants are taking the jobs of Americans. Immigrants reduce wages. Immigrants are leeching off of the system. And every single one of these has an answer, and it's typically not what the anti-immigration crowd says. One of the things I think is useful when you're dealing with someone who claims to be just against immigration, period, is to talk about a situation in which the immigrants are typically white from so-called Western nations, and gauge the reaction to that situation. And then talk about immigrants from countries where people tend to be brown or black, or at least the belief is when you talk about immigrants from Mexico or Haiti, the people aren't white, and see if you get the same reaction. I mean, it's we can study these things scientifically and empirically, and it's been done. But when you have such a situation, if it's someone you know, gauge their reaction. Talk about immigrants from Norway and Sweden, and then talk about immigrants from Haiti or Mexico, whatever the case may be. Now, they may say, well, I have a different opinion about immigrants from Sweden versus immigrants from Haiti, but it's not because of race. It's because it's about skill. And I believe that for no racially motivated reason, the people coming from Sweden are higher skilled than the people coming from Haiti. The reality is that there's plenty of highly skilled computer programmers, engineers, people in the medical field, accountants coming from Africa. Some of the top engineering and programming people that I know in the United States are from Argentina. Now, there's an availability bias for sure. Me being from Argentina, I just know more Argentinians. Also, Argentina is mostly white, but a lot of racists don't realize that. They don't know the difference between Argentina and Mexico and, Costa Rica or whatever the case may be. But this is, I'm reminded of the situation with the Israeli BDS movement where, in principle, just saying for political reasons Israel should be boycotted, that's not anti-Semitic. But the BDS movement is a haven for and provides cover for many anti-Semites whose reasons stated for boycotting Israel could apply to 10 other countries, which they either aren't even aware of or are aware of, but certainly aren't interested or advocating in boycotting. So yes, you can be. I mean, if you're just trying to get me to say you can be against immigration and not be a racist, of course. Now that we've gotten back beyond the hypothetical, let's actually deal with the typical reasons that are given for being against immigration and see if they're applied equally, regardless of race or ethnicity. And you very quickly see how it is a cover for lots of racists and xenophobes. You may not have known this, but when you see me sitting here on the show, I am often wearing shirts by a company called Teddy Stratford. I asked them to be a sponsor because they are by far my favorite shirts that I own. With almost all other slim fit button-up shirts I've worn, You get this annoying stretched out gap in the chest where the buttons are, which does not look good. But what makes Teddy Stratford shirts unique is this patented zipper that's hidden underneath the buttons, which actually prevents the chest from looking weird and stretched out like that. It looks really good. And just all around, they cut the entire shirt in a specific way that makes your upper body look a lot better. It's just a much nicer and more stylish fit than you get from other shirts. And they hand make everything with 100% Egyptian cotton and flat felled seams, which means it's going to be a lot more durable than other shirts and last a lot longer, which I really love. Go check them out at davidpakman.com/Teddy. The link is down below and they'll give you 15% off your first order if you use the coupon code PAKMAN at checkout.